The emergency session of the Galactic War Council convened in the crystalline chambers of Nexus Prime, where representatives from 47 species gathered around the massive holographic display. The air hummed with tension as Admiral Zyxthera of the Kethmoran Empire called the assembly to order, her four eyes scanning the diverse crowd of military leaders. "Fellow commanders," she began, her voice carrying the weight of desperation, "we face an unprecedented crisis. The Void Hunters have broken through our outer defenses and are advancing toward the core systems. Our projections show complete galactic annihilation within 6 standard cycles." The hologram flickered to life, displaying the relentless advance of the Dark Fleet. Black ships moved like a plague across star systems, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. The assembled leaders watched in grim silence as entire civilizations disappeared from the tactical display. General Fakvar, representing the warrior race of Brutans, slammed his massive fist on the table. "We have thrown everything at them. Our finest warriors, our most advanced weapons, our greatest tactical minds. Nothing stops their advance. Each engagement costs us entire fleets while they seem to grow stronger." The ethereal representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed with frustrated light. "Our psychic warfare specialists attempted to penetrate their mental defenses. The experience was traumatic. Their minds are vast emptiness, consuming thought itself. We lost 3 entire orders of our most powerful telepaths." Captain Velterra of the technologically advanced Nexari stepped forward, her cybernetic implants glowing softly. "Even our quantum weapons prove ineffective. They seem to absorb energy attacks and convert them into fuel for their own systems. Conventional ballistics pass through their ships as if they were phantoms." The Kethmoran admiral's expression darkened further. "Intelligence reports indicate they are not merely conquering territory. They are erasing it from existence itself. Planets, stars, even spacetime and the regions they occupy simply ceases. This is not war as we understand it. This is the consumption of reality." Ambassador Ninara of the diplomatic Zenith Collective raised her elongated arm. "Perhaps negotiation remains possible. We have successfully mediated conflicts between species for millennia. Surely even these entities have some motivation we can address." "Tried that," rumbled Warchief Giathon of the Siege Clans. "Sent our best diplomats. They never returned. Not captured, not killed. They stopped existing. Our sensors detected them approaching the Void Hunter ships, then, nothing. As if they had never been." The room fell into worried murmurs as species representatives huddled together, discussing increasingly desperate strategies. The holographic display continued its relentless update, showing 3 more systems winking out of existence in real time. Dr. Lythana, the chief scientist from the research-focused Scholars of Atheron, approached the central console. "We have analyzed their technology extensively. Their ships appear to operate on principles that violate our understanding of physics. They exist partially outside our dimensional framework, making them effectively immune to most forms of attack." "What about the Titan-class weapons?" asked Commander Prexenael of the militaristic Iron Legion. "We could deploy planet crackers, star killers, even the forbidden reality bombs from the old war." The scholar's tentacles writhed nervously. "Our simulations suggest such weapons would only feed their power. They consume energy, matter, and even the fabric of space itself. Using our most destructive weapons might actually accelerate their advance." General Mordek of the Stellar Defense Force stood slowly, his ancient frame bearing the scars of countless battles. "In my 7 centuries of warfare, I have never encountered an enemy that could not be defeated through superior tactics, overwhelming force, or strategic thinking. This enemy appears to be beyond all conventional understanding of conflict." The Admiral's aide, a young Kethmoran named Serthan, approached with a datapad, his expression puzzled. "Admiral, we have received a communication from an unknown source. The transmission appears to be from a species not represented in this council." Admiral Zyxthera's eyes narrowed. "Unknown species? Our intelligence networks monitor every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. There are no uncontacted advanced species remaining." "The message is brief," Serthan continued, reading from the pad. It states, "Galactic War Council, we have monitored your discussions regarding the Void Hunter threat. We represent a species called humanity from the planet Earth, located in what you designate as Sector 7G of the Outer Rim territories. We request permission to address the Council regarding a potential solution to your current crisis." Confused murmurs erupted throughout the chamber. The Outer Rim territories were considered barely civilized backwater regions, populated primarily by primitive species that had barely achieved interplanetary flight. Humans? Ambassador Ninera's translator struggled with the unfamiliar word. I have never heard of such a species. Are they perhaps a recently uplifted client race of one of our member civilizations? Captain Valterra's cybernetic systems flickered as she accessed the galactic database. Scanning, no records found. The species designation human does not exist in our xenological archives. Sector 7G is listed as containing only pre-industrial civilizations. War Chief Giathon laughed harshly. Primitives offering solutions to a crisis that has stumped our greatest minds? This is either desperate humor or elaborate deception. But Admiral Zyxthera held up her hand for silence, her tactical mind considering all possibilities. In our darkest hour, we cannot afford to dismiss any potential aid, regardless of its source. If this species has somehow developed technology capable of addressing the Void Hunter threat, we must at least hear their proposal. Dr. Lythaina's sensors detected an incoming transmission request. Admiral, they are requesting permission to establish visual communication. Their technology appears to be surprisingly sophisticated for a species from the Outer Rim. Grant permission, the Admiral commanded. Let us see what these humans have to offer. The holographic display shifted, and the assembled leaders found themselves facing a single figure that immediately drew their attention. The being appeared remarkably similar to several known humanoid species, yet subtly different in ways that suggested independent evolution. He wore what appeared to be a simple military uniform, dark green in color with minimal decorations. Greetings, Galactic War Council, the human said, his voice carrying a calm confidence that seemed oddly inappropriate given the dire circumstances. I am Colonel Marcus Chen, representing the Earth Defense Force. We understand you are facing an existential threat from entities you call the Void Hunters. General Fakvar's warrior instincts bristled at the human's casual demeanor. You claim to represent a solution to our crisis, yet our records show your species has barely achieved spaceflight. What could primitives possibly offer that our advanced civilizations cannot provide? Marcus smiled slightly, an expression that somehow managed to be both reassuring and unsettling. With respect, General, you are operating under outdated information. Humanity has been spacefaring for longer than your records indicate, and we have developed rather unique approaches to warfare. Admiral Zyxthera leaned forward. Explain your proposal, Colonel Chen. Our simulations show complete galactic annihilation within 6 cycles. What capability does humanity possess that 47 advanced civilizations lack? The short answer, Marcus replied, is that we specialize in killing things that are very difficult to kill. The Void Hunters present certain challenges, but they are not invincible. We have faced similar threats before. Dr. Lythaina's tentacles curled with skepticism. Our analysis indicates these entities exist partially outside normal spacetime. They consume energy, matter, and even reality itself. How could any species have encountered comparable threats? Marcus's expression grew more serious. Doctor, humanity's history is filled with conflicts against enemies that seemed invincible. We have a saying, if it bleeds, we can kill it. If it doesn't bleed, we make it bleed, then kill it. The Void Hunters have made one critical error in their assessment of galactic threats. And what error is that? Captain Valterra asked, her analytical mind engaged despite her skepticism. They have never encountered humans in combat, Marcus stated simply. We would like to request permission to deploy a single marine unit to engage the advancing Void Hunter fleet. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. General Mordek stood abruptly, his voice filled with disbelief. A single unit? Colonel, we have deployed entire armadas against these entities with no success. What could one small group possibly accomplish? Marcus's smile returned, carrying a predatory edge that made several representatives unconsciously step back. General, you are thinking in conventional terms. The Void Hunters are accustomed to fighting civilized warfare conducted by logical, strategic minds. They have never faced humans, and they certainly have never faced human marines. Ambassador Ninera's diplomatic training urged caution. Colonel Chen, while we appreciate any offer of assistance, we cannot risk the lives of your personnel in what appears to be a suicide mission. The ethical implications alone. Ambassador, Marcus interrupted gently, you misunderstand the nature of my request.
We are not asking for your protection. We are asking for your permission to hunt.
War Chief Gaethon's battle-scarred features showed grudging interest.
You speak like a warrior, human.
But warriors need weapons, tactics, support. What makes you believe your approaches will succeed where ours have failed? Marcus gestured, and the display showed a tactical overview of human military doctrine. The assembled leaders studied formations and strategies that seemed almost primitive compared to their own advanced warfare concepts, yet something about the underlying philosophy was distinctly unsettling. The difference, Marcus explained, is that you fight wars to achieve victory with minimal losses. You seek efficient solutions that preserve your forces and minimize collateral damage. These are the approaches of civilized species who value life and seek sustainable outcomes.
Dr. Lythana processed this information with growing confusion. Are these not logical approaches to conflict resolution? For conventional conflicts, absolutely, Marcus agreed.
But the Void Hunters are not a conventional enemy. They are an extinction-level threat that seeks to erase all existence. Against such an enemy, civilized approaches are limitations, not advantages.
Admiral Zyxthera's tactical mind began to grasp the implications. You are suggesting that humanity fights differently? Marcus nodded slowly.
Admiral, we fight like the universe is trying to kill us, because for most of our history, it was. We developed warfare strategies based on the assumption that our enemies are stronger, more numerous, and better equipped. We learned to win through methods that more advanced species might consider unorthodox. The human's eyes swept across the assembled representatives, and several noted that his gaze carried an intensity that seemed almost feral. We would like to deploy First Sergeant Alexandra Kane and her Marine squad to conduct reconnaissance and, if possible, elimination of the advancing Void Hunter fleet.
Captain Velterra accessed her databases again.
Colonel, our intelligence indicates the approaching fleet consists of approximately 40,000 vessels, each the size of a small moon.
You are proposing to send a single squad against such overwhelming odds?
Yes, Marcus replied without hesitation.
First Sergeant Kane has never failed to complete a mission.
Her squad has eliminated targets that our own high command considered impossible to defeat.
If the Void Hunters can be killed, she will find a way. General Fakvar's warrior pride bristled.
You claim superior capabilities, yet you have never faced our enemies.
How can you be certain of success? Marcus's smile became genuinely predatory. General, we are not certain of success. Certainty is a luxury we cannot afford.
What we have is something more valuable, absolute determination to survive, combined with a willingness to employ any method necessary to eliminate threats to our species.
The chamber fell silent as the representatives processed this declaration.
There was something in the human's manner that suggested this was not mere bravado, but a fundamental difference in approach to existential threats.
Ambassador Ninara's diplomatic training urged her to explore the implications further. Colonel Chen, your proposal raises ethical concerns. What assurance can you provide that your methods will not create additional threats or destabilize galactic civilization?
Marcus considered this question carefully before responding.
Ambassador, I cannot provide such assurances because I do not know what methods will prove necessary. What I can promise is that if we succeed in eliminating the Void Hunter threat, galactic civilization will continue to exist. If we fail, the ethical concerns become irrelevant.
Dr. Lythana's analytical mind struggled with the human's logic. This approach seems to prioritize survival over all other considerations.
How do you maintain social stability with such a philosophy?
Doctor, Marcus replied, we maintain social stability by ensuring our society survives long enough to evolve and improve.
Dead civilizations have no opportunities for ethical growth. Admiral Zyxthera found herself intrigued despite her reservations.
The human's confidence seemed based on something more substantial than mere arrogance, and the galactic situation was indeed desperate enough to consider unconventional solutions.
Colonel Chen, she said formally, what specific support would you require for this proposed operation?
Marcus consulted a device on his wrist. We need transport to the engagement zone and real-time intelligence on Void Hunter positions.
First Sergeant Kane's squad will handle the rest. We estimate the operation will require between 72 and 96 hours to complete. War Chief Gaethon's battle instincts told him there was more to this request than appeared on the surface.
Human, you speak with the confidence of a species that has faced extinction before.
How many times has your homeworld been threatened with complete annihilation? Marcus paused, accessing his own historical databases. Accurately? Approximately 47 times in recorded history.
Ranging from asteroid impacts and supervolcanic eruptions to alien invasion attempts and internal conflicts involving weapons of mass destruction.
The assembled representatives exchanged shocked glances.
No known species had survived even a single extinction-level event, let alone dozens.
Captain Velterra's cybernetic systems processed this information with growing amazement. How does a species survive 47 existential threats?
By learning that survival is not a guarantee, Marcus replied. It is an achievement that must be earned through preparation, determination, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to protect what matters most.
Admiral ZYX made her decision. Colonel Chen, we grant permission for your proposed operation. We will provide the requested support and monitor the engagement.
May whatever powers guide your species watch over First Sergeant Kane and her squad. Marcus saluted, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both respect and predatory anticipation.
Thank you, Admiral. The hunt begins now.
The transport vessel Galactic Unity approached the designated coordinates at the edge of the Helix Nebula, where the Void Hunter advance fleet had been detected.
Admiral ZYX monitored the operation from the command bridge while First Sergeant Alexandra Kane and her squad prepared for deployment in the cargo bay below.
Kane stood before her 5-person team, her weathered face bearing the scars of countless battles across hostile worlds. Her dark eyes swept over each Marine, checking their equipment with the practiced efficiency of a veteran who had never lost a soldier under her command. Listen up, Marines, she began, her voice carrying the authority of absolute competence.
Today we are hunting something new.
Intelligence indicates these void hunters exist partially outside normal spacetime and feed on energy, matter, and reality itself. They have defeated every military force that has engaged them.
Corporal David Rodriguez, the squad's demolitions expert, grinned as he checked his equipment packs.
So basically Tuesday, Sergeant.
Kane almost smiled.
Essentially, Rodriguez. But these targets present unique challenges. They appear to absorb conventional energy weapons and pass through most ballistic attacks.
Our standard loadout will not be sufficient.
Private First Class Sarah Mitchell, the squad sniper, looked up from calibrating her rifle.
What are we dealing with for target acquisition? Visual confirmation, heat signatures, electromagnetic readings?
Unknown, Kane replied honestly. The aliens described them as existing between dimensions.
We may need to develop new tracking methods in the field. Jackson, what did your preliminary analysis suggest?
Lance Corporal Michael Jackson, the squad's technical specialist and youngest member, consulted his modified scanner devices.
Based on the engagement reports from previous battles, these entities seem to exist in a quantum flux state.
They phase in and out of our reality, which explains why conventional weapons pass through them. Private Emma Thompson, the squad's medic and communications expert, frowned as she reviewed the medical data from previous encounters. Sergeant, the psychological evaluation reports from survivors are disturbing. Multiple species report experiencing existential terror beyond normal combat stress.
Some witnesses developed permanent mental conditions after brief visual contact. Kane nodded grimly.
Fear is a weapon, Thompson. These entities have learned to use it effectively against species that have never faced true predators. But fear works both ways. Sergeant James Walsh, Kane's second-in-command and the squad's heavy weapons specialist, hefted his modified plasma cannon.
What is our primary objective, Sergeant? Reconnaissance, harassment, or full elimination? Elimination, Kane stated flatly.
The alien civilizations have exhausted their conventional options.
If we cannot stop this threat, galactic extinction is inevitable. Failure is not acceptable.
Rodriguez checked his specialized explosives, each one modified with experimental technologies acquired from various human research projects.
Rules of engagement? Kane's expression hardened. There are no rules, Rodriguez. These entities seek to erase all existence. We will employ any method necessary to prevent that outcome. If something works, we use more of it. If something does not work, we try something else. The transport ship's intercom crackled to life. First Sergeant Kane, this is Admiral ZYX. We are approaching the engagement zone.
Our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures ahead.
Kane activated her comm unit. Understood, Admiral. We are ready for deployment.
Sergeant, the Admiral's voice carried obvious concern. Our tactical display is showing the Void Hunter fleet. The scale is beyond our initial estimates. We are detecting over 60,000 vessels, each comparable in size to our largest dreadnoughts.
Are you certain your squad can engage such overwhelming opposition?
Kane looked at her Marines, each one checking their equipment with calm professionalism.
Admiral, we are certain we will engage this opposition. Success depends on factors we cannot predict in advance. Through the viewport, the Marines could see the approaching Void Hunter fleet. The enemy vessels defied easy description, appearing as vast geometric shapes that seemed to bend light around them.
They moved through space in formations that hurt the mind to observe directly, existing in patterns that violated three-dimensional logic. Jackson's scanners detected energy readings that made no sense according to known physics. Sergeant, these readings are impossible. The energy output from their smallest vessels exceeds what our largest stars produce, but it is contained in ways that should cause immediate collapse into black holes. Mitchell observed the enemy fleet through her rifle scope, noting details that the ship's sensors could not capture.
Movement patterns appear organic rather than mechanical.
They flow like liquid, but maintain structural integrity.
Visual observation is causing mild disorientation effects.
Thompson monitored the communication channels, listening to the panic reports from Galactic fleet units that had attempted to engage the enemy.
Multiple species are reporting complete loss of contact with their advance scouts.
No distress calls, no battle reports. Ships approached the enemy fleet and simply stopped transmitting. Walsh studied the tactical display with professional interest.
Estimated time to engagement range?
17 minutes at current approach vector, Jackson replied, his instruments tracking the relative movements of both fleets. Kane activated the squad's private communication channel.
Marines, we are facing an enemy that has never encountered human military doctrine.
They have defeated every opponent through superior technology and psychological warfare. They expect their enemies to fight according to logical, predictable patterns.
Rodriguez loaded his modified explosives into the deployment launcher. They have never fought humans.
Correct, Kane confirmed. They do not understand that humans view impossible odds as normal operating conditions. They cannot comprehend a species that has survived 47 extinction events through sheer stubborn refusal to die. Mitchell made final adjustments to her rifle, a weapon that had been modified with technologies that technically violated several galactic weapons treaties.
Primary target identification? Kane studied the enemy fleet formation, her tactical mind analyzing weaknesses that more civilized military thinkers might miss.
We identify the largest vessel and work our way through their command structure. These entities demonstrate organized behavior, which suggests hierarchical control systems. Thompson established secure communication links with the galactic monitoring stations.
All channels are active.
They will be able to track our engagement in real time. Walsh checked his heavy weapons systems, each one incorporating experimental technologies that human military research had developed for worst-case scenarios.
Backup extraction plan? Kane's smile was cold and predatory.
Walsh, if we require extraction, it means we have failed to eliminate the threat.
Humans do not retreat from extinction-level enemies.
The transport vessel's captain, a nervous Nexari named Velkath, announced over the intercom that they were approaching the deployment zone. Through the viewports, the Void Hunter fleet loomed like a geometric nightmare, their impossible vessels casting shadows that seemed to consume light itself. Jackson's instruments detected the enemy ships were beginning to take notice of their approach.
Sergeant, we are being scanned. Their scanning methods are unlike anything in our databases.
It feels like they are examining our atomic structure. Kane stood and secured her gear with practiced efficiency. Marines, we deploy in 30 seconds. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and kill anything that threatens human survival. The squad moved to the deployment bay, where a modified drop pod waited. The vessel had been equipped with experimental stealth technology and shielding systems designed to penetrate unknown defensive barriers.
Admiral ZYX Thoreau's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. First Sergeant Kane, the Galactic War Council wishes you success in this mission. The survival of 47 civilizations depends on your actions today.
Kane sealed her helmet and checked the atmospheric readings one final time.
Admiral, the survival of 47 civilizations depends on these entities learning what happens when they threaten human space.
Rodriguez laughed as he secured his explosive charges. They picked the wrong galaxy to try to erase. Mitchell chambered a round that had been specifically designed to disrupt quantum field fluctuations.
Target acquired. Largest vessel in the center formation.
Thompson established final communication protocols with Galactic Command.
All monitoring stations are active.
They will observe everything. Walsh powered up his heavy weapons systems, each one carrying enough firepower to level a small city.
Weapons hot and ready for engagement. Jackson activated the drop pod's experimental navigation systems. Stealth fields are active.
We should be undetectable until we begin our assault. Kane looked at her squad one final time, seeing the calm determination that had made human Marines legendary among those who knew of their existence.
Marines, today we hunt predators.
Today we show the galaxy what humans do to things that threaten our survival. The drop pod launched from the transport vessel, streaking toward the Void Hunter fleet like a meteor carrying humanity's answer to extinction. Behind them, the combined galactic fleets watched with desperate hope as 6 humans approached an enemy that had defeated every military force in known space. Kane studied the approaching enemy vessels through the pod's sensors, her mind already formulating attack strategies based on observed weaknesses. The Void Hunters moved with the confidence of predators who had never encountered prey that fought back effectively.
30 seconds to contact, Jackson announced as their pod approached the outer perimeter of the enemy fleet.
Kane activated her weapons systems and felt the familiar calm that came before battle. Marines, the hunt begins now.
Show them why humans are the galaxy's apex predators.
The drop pod penetrated the Void Hunter fleet's perimeter, and First Sergeant Alexandra Kane began the most important hunt of her career. The drop pod materialized inside the hull of the largest Void Hunter vessel, its experimental stealth technology successfully bypassing the entity's quantum barriers. Kane's squad found themselves in a space that defied geometric logic, where corridors bent in directions that should not exist and walls pulsed with dark energy that seemed to consume light itself. Kane immediately activated her helmet's modified sensors, designed by human military scientists who had studied captured alien technologies for decades. The readings were disturbing but not incomprehensible.
Marines, environmental analysis indicates hostile atmosphere and gravitational anomalies. Sealed suit operations are mandatory.
Rodriguez surveyed their surroundings with professional interest, noting the organic-mechanical hybrid architecture that seemed to grow rather than be constructed. Sergeant, the walls appear to be alive.
They are responding to our presence.
Mitchell took position at the squad's perimeter, her modified rifle tracking movement patterns that conventional sensors could not detect.
Multiple contacts approaching our position.
Movement signatures do not match any known biological or mechanical patterns. The first Void Hunter entity materialized before them, a being that existed as both solid matter and empty space simultaneously.
It towered 3 meters in height, its form shifting between geometric patterns and organic shapes.
When it focused on the humans, reality around it seemed to bend and twist. Kane raised her weapon, a rifle that fired projectiles designed to disrupt quantum field fluctuations.
Contact front. Engage at will.
The squad opened fire with weapons that had been specifically modified for this mission. Mitchell's rifle discharged rounds that created temporary tears in spacetime.
Rodriguez launched explosives that detonated in multiple dimensions simultaneously.
Walsh fired energy bolts that existed in quantum superposition until impact. The Void Hunter entity reacted with what could only be described as surprise. The human weapons were affecting it in ways that conventional attacks never had. Dark energy bled from wounds that appeared and disappeared as the creature's form fluctuated between states of existence. Jackson monitored his sensors while maintaining suppressing fire with his modified assault rifle. Sergeant, the entity's quantum signature is destabilizing. Our weapons are forcing it to exist in a single-dimensional state. Kane pressed their advantage, advancing while continuing to fire.
It cannot maintain its phase-shifted defense under sustained attack. Keep firing.
The Void Hunter entity attempted to employ the fear-based psychological warfare that had proven so effective against other species.
Waves of existential terror washed over the Marines, carrying visions of cosmic insignificance and universal entropy.
Thompson felt the mental assault but maintained her position, her mind protected by psychological conditioning that human military psychologists had developed through decades of studying captured alien mental warfare techniques. Sergeant, detecting psychic attack protocols.
Ineffective against human mental defenses. Kane smiled grimly as she continued firing.
The entity's fear-based attacks were encountering something it had never faced before, a species that had been born into a hostile universe and had learned to find comfort in chaos. Rodriguez, demo charges on the support structures.
Let's see if this thing can maintain dimensional integrity without a stable framework.
Rodriguez placed his experimental explosives on key points throughout the organic mechanical architecture. The charges were designed to detonate in multiple dimensional phases, creating cascading structural failures across spacetime. The detonations ripped through the Void Hunter vessel like wounds in reality itself.
The entity before them began to lose cohesion as its environmental support systems collapsed.
For the first time in eons, a Void Hunter experienced something approaching fear. Mitchell took careful aim and fired a specialized round designed to exist in all possible quantum states simultaneously.
The projectile struck the entity's core mass, forcing it to choose a single state of existence. Target is now vulnerable to conventional weapons.
Walsh opened fire with his heavy plasma cannon, each shot calibrated to disrupt the exotic matter that composed the creature's physical form. The Void Hunter entity, no longer able to phase between dimensions, began to take substantial damage. The entity attempted to retreat, but found its escape routes blocked by the continuing explosions from Rodriguez's demolition charges. It was trapped in a single-dimensional state for the first time in its existence, vulnerable to attack methods it had never needed to defend against.
Kane coordinated her squad's movements with practiced efficiency.
Thompson scanned for additional hostiles.
Jackson mapped the vessel's internal structure. We need to locate their command systems.
Thompson's sensors detected massive movement throughout the ship as additional Void Hunter entities responded to the unprecedented attack.
Multiple contacts converging on our position.
Estimated 30-plus entities approaching from various directions. Jackson's modified scanning equipment revealed the vessel's control center, located at what appeared to be the geometric center of the impossible architecture.
Command structure identified. Distance approximately 800 meters through hostile territory.
Kane made the tactical decision that would define the engagement. We advanced to the command center.
These entities have never faced sustained assault from an enemy that refuses to be intimidated. We maintain momentum until they are all eliminated.
The squad moved through corridors that shifted and changed around them, their specialized equipment allowing them to navigate geometry that should have been impossible.
Rodriguez left demolition charges at strategic intervals, creating a trail of destruction that would prevent enemy reinforcement.
As they advanced, they encountered increasing numbers of Void Hunter entities. Each engagement followed the same pattern. The entities would attempt to phase shift to avoid damage, only to find human weapons forcing them into vulnerable states where conventional tactics became effective. Mitchell eliminated targets with precision shots that disrupted their quantum coherence. Walsh provided heavy fire support that prevented enemy formations from organizing effective counterattacks. Jackson maintained technical support, using his modified equipment to identify weaknesses in enemy defenses. Thompson monitored communications with the galactic monitoring stations, providing real-time reports of their engagement. Sergeant, Galactic Command is reporting that our actions are having effects beyond this vessel. Enemy fleet formations are showing signs of confusion and coordination breakdown. Kane pressed their advance toward the command center, eliminating Void Hunter entities with methodical efficiency. Each enemy they destroyed seemed to weaken the overall fleet structure, suggesting these beings shared some form of collective consciousness. As they approached the vessel's control center, they encountered the largest Void Hunter entity they had yet seen. This creature appeared to be a command variant, its form more stable and its presence more psychologically oppressive than the others they had faced. The command entity attempted to communicate with the humans, projecting thoughts directly into their minds. The mental contact revealed a consciousness vast and ancient, older than most galactic civilizations, filled with contempt for the brief spark of existence that younger species represented. Kane felt the entity's thoughts pressing against her mind, trying to convince her of humanity's cosmic insignificance. The creature could not understand how such a young species could threaten beings that had witnessed the birth and death of stars. Marines, Kane announced calmly, this one thinks humans are insignificant because we are young. It does not understand that we have learned to kill things much older and more powerful than ourselves. Rodriguez placed his largest demolition charge on the command center's primary support structure.
Agent, experience mean nothing if you have never faced an enemy like us.
Mitchell took aim at the command entity's central mass, her weapon loaded with a round that would force the creature into a single-dimensional state permanently.
Target acquired. Ready to fire on your command.
Walsh positioned his heavy weapons for maximum effect, preparing to provide covering fire that would prevent the entity from escaping or calling for reinforcement.
Heavy weapons ready for sustained barrage.
Jackson monitored the entity's attempts to interface with its vessel's control systems, using his equipment to disrupt the connection between creature and ship.
Sergeant, I can prevent it from controlling the vessel's defensive systems.
Thompson maintained contact with Galactic Command while preparing for the final assault.
All stations are monitoring.
They need to witness what happens when Void Hunters encounter human Marines. Kane looked at the ancient entity that had consumed countless civilizations and destroyed entire star systems. In its vast consciousness, she saw the arrogance of a predator that had never encountered effective prey resistance.
Marines, she commanded, show this thing why humans are the galaxy's ultimate survivors.
The squad opened fire with everything they possessed, their combined assault focusing on the command entity with devastating effect. The ancient being, forced into a single state of existence by human weapons, found itself vulnerable for the first time in millennia. As the command entity began to collapse under their sustained attack, alarms throughout the Void Hunter vessel indicated massive system failures. The destruction of the command variant was causing cascading breakdowns throughout the entire fleet structure. Kane realized that they had discovered the Void Hunter's critical weakness. Their collective consciousness made them vulnerable to targeted leadership elimination. Destroy the command entities, and the entire fleet would lose coordination and effectiveness. Rodriguez, maximum demolition charges throughout this command center. We are going to make sure this thing stays dead. The demolitions expert placed every remaining explosive device throughout the control center, creating a destruction pattern that would eliminate the command entity completely and damage the vessel beyond any possibility of recovery. As they prepared to evacuate to the next target vessel, Kane contacted Galactic Command.
Admiral ZYXthera, we have eliminated the primary command entity. The Void Hunter fleet coordination is breaking down. We are proceeding to the next command vessel. The Admiral's voice carried disbelief and desperate hope. Sergeant Kane, our sensors show massive disruption throughout the enemy fleet. How many entities have you eliminated?
Kane checked her ammunition count and calculated the remaining targets.
Unknown exact number, Admiral. We will continue elimination until all command entities are destroyed or we run out of ammunition. Thompson smiled as she monitored the communications from the panicked Void Hunter fleet.
Sergeant, they are trying to retreat. The entities are attempting to phase back into their dimensional hiding spaces.
Kane's expression became predatory. Jackson, can we track them during dimensional phase shift? Jackson's modified sensors detected the quantum signatures of retreating Void Hunters. Affirmative, Sergeant. Our equipment can follow them between dimensions.
Kane made the decision that would end the Void Hunter threat permanently.
Marines, we pursue them into whatever dimension they retreat to. No enemy retreats from human Marines.
Rodriguez triggered his demolition charges as they prepared to phase shift in pursuit of the retreating enemies. Behind them, the command vessel began to collapse as explosions ripped through its impossible architecture. The squad activated their experimental dimensional translation equipment and followed the Void Hunters into the space between realities, carrying humanity's war into dimensions where no physical species had ever fought before. Kane led her Marines into the unknown, knowing that the survival of galactic civilization depended on their willingness to hunt their enemies wherever they tried to hide. Kane's squad emerged into a dimension that existed between realities, where the retreating Void Hunters had sought refuge in a space they believed no physical beings could follow. The environment defied description, existing as pure concept rather than matter, where thoughts became geography and will determine physical laws. Jackson's modified sensors struggled to process readings in a realm where traditional physics held no meaning.
Sergeant, we are existing in a state of quantum consciousness.
Our equipment is maintaining our physical integrity through sheer technological stubbornness. Kane surveyed their surroundings with the calm professionalism that had carried her through impossible missions across hostile galaxies. The dimensional space around them rippled with the presence of thousands of Void Hunter entities, ancient beings that had retreated to their place of origin to escape the unprecedented threat humanity represented. Marines, we have followed these entities to their home dimension.
This is where they retreat when facing extinction.
Today, we ensure they have nowhere left to run. Rodriguez checked his remaining demolition charges, each one modified with exotic matter that could theoretically detonate across multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Sergeant, we are seriously outgunned here. I count approximately 15,000 entities, and we are in their home territory. Mitchell positioned herself with clear sightlines across the conceptual battlefield, her rifle loaded with ammunition designed to exist in pure thought space.
Rules of engagement in a dimension where thinking makes reality?
Kane smiled with the predatory satisfaction that had made her legendary among human special forces.
Mitchell, the rules are simple. We think about killing them, and then we kill them. These entities made a fundamental error in their assessment of humanity.
Thompson monitored communications with the physical universe, maintaining contact with Galactic Command through experimental dimensional transmission equipment.
Admiral ZY is requesting status update. Galactic sensors show the Void Hunter fleet in complete disarray.
Walsh hefted his modified plasma cannon, its energy systems adapted to function in a realm where energy and matter were interchangeable concepts.
What was their mistake, Sergeant?
Kane activated her squad's private communication channel and began coordinating their assault on enemies that existed as living nightmares in a dimension built from fear itself. Their mistake was assuming that humans would be intimidated by impossible odds and incomprehensible environments. The Void Hunter entities began to gather around the Marines, their forms shifting between states of existence as they prepared to employ psychological warfare methods that had destroyed the minds of countless species.
Waves of cosmic terror washed over the humans, carrying visions of universal entropy and existential meaninglessness.
Kane felt the mental assault and laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the conceptual space around them. Marines, these things are trying to scare us by showing us a hostile universe that wants to kill us. They do not understand that humans were born in exactly such a universe. Rodriguez triggered his first demolition charge, creating an explosion that existed in pure thought space while simultaneously manifesting as physical destruction. The detonation ripped through the dimensional fabric, causing several Void Hunter entities to lose cohesion and collapse into component energy patterns. The entities reacted with something approaching panic. For eons, they had existed as the ultimate predators in a realm where they controlled all aspects of reality. The presence of beings who could not only survive in their dimension but actively damage them was beyond their comprehension. Mitchell fired carefully aimed shots that targeted the conceptual cores of individual entities, each projectile existing as crystallized human determination to survive. Her rounds struck with devastating effect, disrupting the ancient consciousness patterns that had consumed countless civilizations. Jackson used his modified scanning equipment to map the dimensional structure, identifying critical nodes where the Void Hunters drew their power from the fabric of unreality itself.
Sergeant, I am detecting the source of their dimensional anchor points.
If we can disrupt those connections, they will lose their ability to exist in this space. Kane coordinated her squad's movements through terrain that existed as manifested thought, advancing toward the central consciousness that appeared to control the entire Void Hunter collective. The entity was vast beyond description, a being that had existed since the early epochs of the universe. As they approached, the central consciousness attempted direct mental contact with Kane, projecting its ancient wisdom and cosmic perspective into her mind. The entity could not understand how such young creatures could threaten beings that had witnessed the formation of galaxies and the death of stars. Kane felt the creature's thoughts pressing against her consciousness, trying to convince her of humanity's cosmic insignificance. The being showed her visions of the brief span of human existence compared to its own eternal perspective, the futility of resistance against forces beyond mortal comprehension. Marines, Kane announced calmly as she continued advancing, this ancient thing is trying to explain why we should accept extinction. It does not understand that humans have never accepted inevitability. Thompson maintained contact with Galactic Command while engaging targets with her modified assault rifle.
Sergeant, Admiral ZY reports that the Void Hunter fleet in normal space is collapsing.
Our actions here are causing system-wide failures throughout their entire force structure. Walsh provided heavy weapons support that carved through dimensional barriers like solid matter, each shot manifesting as concentrated human stubbornness given physical form. These entities seem surprised that we refuse to be impressed by their age and power. Kane reached the central consciousness and stood before a being that dwarfed entire star systems, its presence filling the conceptual space around them with the weight of eons. The entity attempted one final psychological assault, showing her the inevitable heat death of the universe and the meaninglessness of all mortal struggle. Kane looked up at the ancient consciousness and smiled with genuine amusement.
You still do not understand. Humans are not afraid of meaningless struggle against impossible odds. We were born for it. She raised her rifle and fired a single shot directly into the conceptual core of the central consciousness. The projectile carried not just kinetic energy, but the crystallized essence of humanity's refusal to surrender in the face of extinction-level threats. The ancient being screamed across dimensions as the human determination struck its core consciousness. For the first time in its eternal existence, it experienced something it had never known, the fear of its own mortality. Rodriguez placed his largest demolition charges throughout the dimensional anchor points that Jackson had identified. "Sergeant, these explosives will collapse the entire pocket dimension. We need to evacuate to normal space before detonation." Kane coordinated the squad's withdrawal while maintaining suppressing fire on the collapsing Void Hunter entities. Thompson, signal Galactic Command. Inform them that the Void Hunter threat is being permanently eliminated. Mitchell provided covering fire as they retreated toward their dimensional extraction point, her shots disrupting pursuing entities that attempted to follow them back to normal space. Multiple targets attempting pursuit. Engaging with extreme prejudice. Walsh fired sustained barrages that held the collapsing dimensional space stable long enough for their escape, his heavy weapons creating barriers of crystallized human determination that the Void Hunters could not penetrate. Jackson activated their experimental dimensional translation equipment, opening a portal back to the physical universe where the galactic fleets waited for news of their mission outcome. Extraction portal active. 30 seconds to dimensional collapse. The squad retreated through the portal as Rodriguez's demolition charges detonated throughout the pocket dimension. Behind them, the Void Hunter home dimension collapsed as explosions ripped through the conceptual framework that had supported their existence for billions of years. Kane and her Marines materialized aboard the Galactic Command vessel, their dimensional translation equipment smoking from the strain of operating in pure thought space. Around them, the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations waited for news of humanity's confrontation with extinction. Admiral Zyxthara approached with an expression of desperate hope mixed with disbelief. "Sergeant Kane, our sensors show the Void Hunter fleet has completely collapsed. All enemy vessels have lost power and are drifting helplessly. What happened?" Kane removed her helmet and looked at the assembled galactic representatives with the calm satisfaction of a completed mission. "Admiral, we eliminated the enemy command structure and destroyed their dimensional refuge. The Void Hunter threat has been permanently neutralized." Warchief Giathon stared at the tactical display showing thousands of dead Void Hunter vessels floating powerlessly in space. "Sergeant, how many enemy entities did your squad eliminate?" Kane checked her after-action report with professional thoroughness. "All of them, Warchief. We do not leave extinction-level threats partially eliminated." Dr. Lythaina's tentacles writhed with amazement as she processed the sensor data from the engagement. "This is impossible. 6 individuals cannot eliminate a threat that defeated our combined military forces." Rodriguez smiled as he cleaned his weapons with practiced efficiency. "Doctor, you were fighting a conventional war against an unconventional enemy. Humans specialize in unconventional solutions to impossible problems." Captain Valterra's cybernetic system struggled to process the tactical recordings of the engagement. "Your methods violated numerous galactic weapons conventions and strategic doctrines. How do you justify such aggressive approaches?" Mitchell looked up from maintaining her rifle with the calm professionalism of a Marine who had just saved galactic civilization. "Captain, when facing extinction, conventional approaches become limitations rather than advantages." Ambassador Ninera attempted to understand the philosophical implications of humanity's victory. "Sergeant Kane, your species achieved through violence what our combined diplomatic and military efforts could not accomplish. What does this say about galactic civilization?" Kane considered the question while reviewing her squad's equipment expenditure reports. "Ambassador, it says that galactic civilization has been fortunate enough to develop in a relatively safe universe. Humanity evolved in a hostile environment where extinction-level threats were common. We learned different lessons." General Mordek studied the battle recordings with the fascination of a career military officer witnessing revolutionary tactics. "Sergeant, what would you have done if your mission had failed?" Walsh looked up from his equipment maintenance with mild confusion. "Failed, General? We are human Marines. Failure was not an option." Jackson consulted his technical analysis of the Void Hunter technology they had encountered.
The enemy's fundamental weakness was their inability to comprehend a species that views impossible odds as normal operating conditions. Thompson finished her after-action communication reports and addressed the assembled representatives directly. The Void Hunters were apex predators in a universe where their prey had never learned to hunt predators in return. Admiral ZYX realized she was witnessing the end of a crisis that had threatened to destroy all known civilization. Sergeant Kane, on behalf of the Galactic War Council and all member species, how can we express our gratitude for humanity's intervention? Kane looked at the tactical display showing the disabled Void Hunter fleet and made a decision that would change galactic civilization forever. Admiral, we request formal recognition of humanity as a galactic species and permission to establish Earth Defense Force installations throughout the galaxy.
General Fakvar's warrior instincts recognized the implications immediately. You are offering to extend your protection to our civilizations.
Kane nodded with the calm confidence that had carried her through the impossible mission. General, the universe is hostile and full of threats that civilized species are not equipped to handle.
Humans have been preparing for such threats our entire evolutionary history.
War Chief Giathon realized he was witnessing the emergence of a new form of galactic power. Sergeant, what you are proposing would fundamentally change the balance of galactic civilization.
Rodriguez smiled as he secured his demolition equipment.
War Chief, galactic civilization just learned that it needs protectors who specialize in killing things that should not be able to be killed.
Admiral ZYX made the decision that would define the next era of galactic history. Sergeant Kane, the Galactic War Council formally recognizes humanity as a member species and grants permission for Earth Defense Force installations wherever they are deemed necessary. Kane saluted the assembled representatives with genuine respect.
Admiral, humanity accepts the responsibility of protecting galactic civilization from extinction-level threats.
We will ensure that what happened today never happens again.
As the disabled Void Hunter vessels were secured for study and disposal, the representatives of 47 civilizations watched the 6 humans who had saved their universe prepare for transport back to Earth.
Dr. Lythana approached Kane with scientific curiosity overcoming her amazement. Sergeant, how will we explain to our populations that 6 individuals accomplished what our greatest military forces could not?
Kane smiled as she prepared to board the transport that would carry her squad home. Doctor, you tell them that they learned what happens when extinction-level threats encounter human marines. And you tell them they never need to worry about such threats again. The Marines departed for Earth, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again face extinction alone. Humanity had announced its presence in galactic civilization not through diplomacy or trade, but through the simple demonstration that some threats required predators to hunt them. Admiral ZYX watched the human transport disappear into hyperspace and realized that the galaxy had just gained its ultimate guardians. Beings who viewed impossible odds as target practice and extinction-level threats as hunting opportunities.
The age of galactic civilization under human protection had begun.